Hello and welcome to our 19th Conversation to Connect. Let's Get Real Talk, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. At Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative networking to boost your business. Each week, I nominate a different member of our Exceptional Connections community to be able to have a meaningful conversation with. And so be sure to make yourself comfortable with a cup of tea or a beverage of your choice and take notes, and be sure to add comments and questions in the chat box so that you can engage with us during our conversation. About the 45-minute mark, I'll unmute the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share their ahas, epiphanies, and enter into our thought-provoking conversation. The inspiration of our weekly Conversation to Connect, Let's Get Real Talks is purposeful conversation. So we desire to be relevant during these changing and uncertain times, and to support our community to make an impact in the world and stay connected. So as we get started, I invite you to set aside distractions and invest your attention in the conversation that's about to unfold. So look for one idea that you can take away and put into action so you don't cheat yourself with the investment you've made here today. So our Conversation to Connect this week is with the amazing Julie Fry from Normandy Park, Washington. Say hi, Julie.
Hi, thanks for having me, Cyndi. It's great to be here.
It's an honor. And so Julie was the September spotlight speaker for our online networking event. And she shared in her 20-minute Spotlight Speaker Talk, how to increase your visibility with podcast interviews. So we're in for a treat today because we have an opportunity to have more conversation, learn more about this really hot topic, and be able to learn more about Julie as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited and looking forward to seeing what questions come up for people too.
Yes, it's going to be a fun conversation and very appropriate, hot topic. So Julie Fry is the founder of Your Expert Guest, a podcast guest strategy and booking agency. Her secret sauce, I love that, is creating meaningful connections between people that become clients, collaborators, resources, mentors, and friends. So Julie discovered this gift when she founded and ran the organization Business Among Moms. She's passionate about supporting small businesses and helping experts share their messages with larger audiences. When she's not working with clients, you can find her walking her crazy Chihuahua, Jack Russell, having dance-offs with her kids, watching Saturday Night Live with her husband, or listening to some favorite podcasts. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and you may even get the benefit of hearing pounding rain on this call, because since we've started, it has started coming down in buckets. So hopefully, fingers crossed, like it doesn't affect the internet. So
yes, and here too, but we need it here in the Pacific Northwest with all the smoke that we've had. So this is definitely a blessing. So Julie, before we dive into this intriguing topic, share with our listeners a bit about your journey as the founder of BAM, Business Among Moms. And it was a wonderful organization, still is. You're just not taking the lead on it for the past 5 years. And also how you birthed your new business, Your Expert Guest.
Sure. Okay. So we will go back to 2013, which is when I took over Business Among Moms. Prior to that, I was the national sales manager for a local consumer products company, actually a leading dog toy manufacturer. So if you've ever seen somebody playing with their dog and they're using one of those long sticks to throw a ball, it's called a chuck-it. And I was the first employee at that company that was headquartered here in Seattle. And we grew from the time I joined them, which was 2002, to when I left in 2013 to let's just say many million-dollar company. And it became acquired by a larger organization that was based in Texas. So after taking a position with the new parent company, I quickly realized that my passion wasn't there. I, really believed in this product line, and it was a smaller company where I could have more of an impact. To when the company was purchased, I was just a little tiny minnow in this big, big sea, and wasn't really passionate about their other products, like really squeaky hamburgers. No thanks. So, so I decided to take the opportunity to explore other options professionally. My kids were 3 and 5 at the time. And because of the nature of my job, I traveled a lot nationally and internationally. So I was looking for something that allowed me to be home more with my kids and to dictate my own schedule. So I ended up finding Business Among Moms, which at that time was a blog. So it was all online. And the more I learned about it and talked to the founder, I thought, this seems like the perfect fit for where I am at in my life right now. So I purchased that company, left my job, and ran Business Among Moms, or BAM, as the founder had, which was purely an online resource for mom entrepreneurs. So it had advertising, it had a blog, it had a directory where people could list themselves. And I just found that it wasn't very fulfilling for me. I am an extrovert, so I really like that person-to-person contact. And I felt also that in this new role that I had developed for myself, I didn't really fit in with the corporate working moms, and I didn't really fit in with the stay-at-home moms. So I was in this weird sort of place where I didn't feel like I had other people that I could relate to. So I started hosting meetups where it was for moms that had a business and also were moms. So the first one, 4 people came, and we had coffee and chatted a bit about our businesses. And as I started to do more of these, I got a lot of joy out of it. And other people told me that they really liked it and it was valuable to them. So over time, built it into a national organization with chapters in different cities that would bring women together that were balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship. So we had monthly events, we had online, meetups similar to this. So yes, we were doing the Zoom thing back in 2014. And then, yes, we also had a conference, an annual conference, which I hosted 5 of them. This is a long story. You kind of opened Pandora's box with this one. So,
you know what? You are beloved in our region, nationally as well. And so it's a big deal, the transition that you made from, being the visible founder of BAM to what you're doing now. And so I think it's worth sharing.
Yes. Well, I love telling this story. So, so now we're in 2019, and I've just finished the 5th summit that we would do every May, and it's the 3rd day of the conference, and I was in a co-working space, kind of gathering some things, and I bent over to pick up my briefcase, and my back spasmed. And I don't know if anybody listening has ever had that happen, but it's like this electrical current just goes through your body. And I had had this happen before, so I knew what I was going to be in for, which was 2 weeks of laying pretty much flat on my back in a lot of pain. So after that, I fell into a depression, and I had never been depressed before. I've always been, people call me Even Steven, Unflappable, Ding Ding Julie, because I'm so optimistic. And I was just struggling. So I was kind of struggling with the direction of my business because it had grown a lot, but there were so many moving parts that I was really burnt out, even though I didn't realize that I was burnt out at the time. And I was struggling with how I felt like I was showing up as a mom. And then I had imposter syndrome because I thought, who am I to run this organization about being a mom when I'm failing? And so it all just kind of imploded. And and then I realized that I had never really dealt with a cancer diagnosis that I had received in 2014. That's a chronic form of leukemia. So all this stuff just sort of imploded, and I was sort of forced to deal with it. And so I spent quite a long time kind of just in this state of not really being able to do anything, and felt that I really needed to sell my business, that it wasn't something that I could run anymore, and figuring out what I was going to do next. So in January, I ended up selling Business Among Moms to one of our chapter leaders in Texas, who's doing a great job taking it over. And I'm really thankful that it was somebody in the community who bought it that can carry it on with the intention it was meant for. And I actually took a job, which was a big mistake. And I found that out within about a week that I'm unemployable in a good way. And then we parted ways amicably at the end of February. And so this was the time when COVID was starting to heat up here. And I was seeing the writing on the wall that our kids were going to be, learning from home in the spring. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to be and not do anything. I'm not going to try to figure out my next professional move. I'm just going to be. Mm-hmm. And through that, I actually started feeling better and coming out of the depression. And I'd go for walks. I had a ritual every single morning, which was, get up, write down 3 things I was grateful for. And over time, that list started growing. Now it's a page of things every day. And I would take our dog for a walk, and I'd listen to a podcast. And so one morning as I was walking, I started remembering, I loved connecting people. Like that was what I did at BAM, and I missed it. And I thought, I wonder what I could do to kind of get that back into my professional life. And then I was listening to a podcast, and I had this light bulb go off, and I just thought, I wonder if I could connect the experts I know to podcasts to, grow their visibility. Because I knew a ton of speakers, a ton of, these niche business owners that I was worried about because of COVID and them having to close temporarily or not being able to go speak to share, their knowledge and help people. So I guinea pigged this idea on a few friends, and it was really just to test the concept. Did I like doing it, and would I be successful? And so I tested it, it worked, I liked it, I got people onto podcasts. And so then I brainstormed names for businesses and came up with Your Expert Guest. And then I would, just very small pieces one at a time, which now has led to a podcast booking agency. And I work with experts in their industry to get more visible on podcasts as a guest and get more leads. So that's the story of how this business came to be.
Oh, what a beautiful story it is too. Thank you for taking us on that journey with you. And, we both share a similar passion of wanting to, desiring to support small businesses, but you taking it a step further by helping experts share their message with larger audiences. So that brings us to our conversation today, right?
That's right. That's right.
One of the things that you talk about is how to get more clients with podcast interviews. So let's just jump right in, and what are some reasons for even having a podcast interview, Julie?
Well, there is a lot. So I'll dig into each of them because we have a little more time. So for those that have never explored podcast guesting as a marketing strategy, there are several reasons why it's such a great strategy. So number one is it gets you in front of a new audience. So typically, if you go on a podcast, you are having a conversation with the host who has developed a following for whatever it is that they're known for. So for instance, Cyndi, if you had a podcast, maybe it would be about networking and networking tips. And let's just say that you had on guests from other industries to share maybe their most awful networking experience. So maybe you'd have lawyers come on, and real estate agents and mortgage brokers and acupuncturists. And so you could have people from all these different industries that are then talking to exceptional you as a leader in the networking space about their experiences, the people listening to your podcast are now learning about this person that they would have never, ever known about before. So that's the top reason of why it's so great, because as we all know, sometimes you get comfortable and you go to the same networking events and you see the same people over time and you learn about them and you learn what a good referral is for them. But to actually show up and be in front of a new audience can be challenging to do. So that's one of the top reasons.
Expanding our network, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The power
Yep.
of that.
Absolutely. The other thing that I love about it.
Can I interrupt for a second? So one of your quotes, your networking nuggets that you shared with our community for our online is, being a guest on a podcast gets you in front of new audiences, which is a beautiful thing.
Yes, yes,
sorry,
for sure.
Just had to share that little.
Yeah. The other thing that's great about it is free. So you know, if you've spoken at events before, especially if it's a larger national conference, you know, you have to buy a plane ticket, you have to book your hotel room. Sometimes there's even a fee, I understand, to be a speaker. I don't know about that. But anyway, it's like you as a podcast guest literally click on the link that they send you to participate. You can show up in your PJs if it's not being broadcast to YouTube or a Facebook Live, and you have a conversation. So there just aren't too many marketing strategies that are totally free to take advantage of. I know there are some podcast hosts that do charge to be on their show, but they are fewer and far between. You can grow your network. So one of the other pieces that I really love about podcast guesting is when you are having a conversation with the host, you have a few minutes before they start recording the interview to just chat and get to know each other. Usually they'll tell you about the format of the interview. You can ask any questions, but as a person that, you know, used to lead networking events, I know one of the most valuable things you can offer is being a resource to that host. So I like to say, you know, is there anything you need in your business that I can help with? Are there any connections that you're looking for? Because they might say, oh, I'm looking for guests that, you know, are life coaches and, you know, specialize in women between 35 and 55. Well, guess what? I know a lot of life coaches that coach women between 35 and 55. So I can be helpful and share a connection or two with them. So that I love meeting new people. I love being able to be a resource. And these are people that are now in your network. You can connect with them on social media. You can stay in touch. So you've just grown your network by being a podcast guest.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So also I'm imagining, you know, it would help your credibility, right? So having that extra exposure.
Yes, yes. And then you can leverage that. You can put it on your website. So you can have a media page or a speaking page on your website where you can list all of your podcast appearances. If somebody Googles you, because podcast appearances are evergreen, even if you do an interview back in 2014, that was when I did my first interview. If you Google Julie Fry, that interview or Julie Fry interview, that will show up in my Google search results. So even if that podcaster stopped producing that show, it will still show up, which is really tremendous. So yes, it absolutely boosts your credibility. And then the other thing that's, you know, kind of, well, why we're talking about this, it can lead to new leads and new clients. So every podcast interview that I do, it generates more leads for my business. Oftentimes those do convert to new clients. And so that's one of the ways that I work with my clients, is for those that are exploring new strategies, as I have ways that I work with them to show them how they can do it for their own business.
I love that. It works so synergistically. And so share with us, Julie, you talked about the hidden gem with this, you know, you doing podcasts and how it improves your SEO.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I alluded to it a little bit, meaning that I had a podcast interview in 2014. She still does have her podcast. It's called Biz Chicks. But when a podcast has you on as a guest, and they publish their show notes, which go up live on their website, they will be linking to your website as well as your social media channels. And so every time a show does that, Google gets a little notification saying, oh, this, we've got more and more sites pointing to this site, your expert guest. This must be a legitimate site because all of these other legitimate websites are pointing back to it. So the more links you have pointing back to your website or backlinks, it just helps you raise up the ranks in Google's search algorithms. So that's what I mean by it improves your SEO.
Beautiful. So Julie, what do we need to do to be prepared before a podcast interview? Being able to
Yep. I have a whole list of things that you should be doing. Maybe we should back it up a little bit because they're like, once you book the interview, there's things that you should do. So let's talk about before you get to the interview. The number one thing you need to really do is get clear on what your interview topics are. And a way that you can do that is think about your expertise. Like, what are you known for? Are you known for being an exceptional connector? Are you known for, helping women between the ages of 35 and 55 or life transitions or whatever it may be? Are you a business coach and you help businesses become more profitable? So whatever your expertise is, you want to refine it down so that it can be used as a launching topic for a conversation. So that's the first thing you need to do before you actually even get booked on a podcast is, what are you going to talk about and why does it matter to the listener? What problems are you solving for them? Because if you don't do that, the host will drive the conversation whatever way they want to drive it, and that may not be useful for you or your business. It might be a fun conversation, but it may not have a direction to point towards an end goal, which is hopefully contacting you to help them.
Right, or put you in your best light.
Yes, I've heard stories about that, for sure.
Okay, so yes, having that clarity is important for yourself, and so that you can be able to attract the right podcast to be able to engage in as well, I imagine.
Exactly. So then you really want to think about what podcasts are going to help you get in front of the right audience. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. One way is to, again, go back to what problems are you solving for your clients, and think about like how, what's the way I want to say this? So what shows are your potential clients listening to? So there's a number of different ways that you can research that piece. You can also tap into your own personal network, many of who may be podcast hosts or connected to podcast hosts. So once you get clear on your interview topics, then you can take it a step further and share with your network that you are interested in going on podcasts and helping. Your network really wants to help you and support you, but they don't know how to do that until you ask them with a very specific ask of what you'd like them to do. So once you get clear on your interview topics, you can say, these are the types of shows I want to go on. These are the things that I like to talk about. Who do you know that I might be a good fit for? That's a great next step to take.
So you have lots of ears listening and being able to connect you to podcasts that you want to be involved in.
Exactly. It's not always just the one-to-one. You could be sitting there in your office going, well, I don't know any podcast hosts, so I can't get on any shows. But it's not about that. And this, everybody who's on this call, it's about connections. And so your connections are all connected to other people that you don't know. So making it clear and understandable to them about what it is that you do so that then they can be advocates for you.
I love that. What I see is just you're activating your connections, basically.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So, okay. So is it a good time to ask what's the best way to get on podcasts, in order to find your perfect podcast?
The best way to get on podcasts. Work with me. I'm just kidding.
No, truly.
So there are a number of different ways. So in the first piece, I talked about
So can I
leveraging.
just add, so having somebody who's a mentor is always important in, as we're growing our business. Somebody who's gone before us,
Yes.
who can show us where the potholes are and, when to turn right, when to turn left. So truly, that's something that you've been taking on even before Zoom became very popular, like as it has in recent days with the shelter in place. So I just want to shine the light on you because you've done you've been in this world for a long time. So I think that's why it's such a beautiful fit for you.
Yeah, yeah. So remind me what we're talking about again. What was the question?
We're talking about how to find your perfect podcast.
Finding your perfect podcast. Okay. So once you get clear on your interview topics and who you want to reach, which is essentially your ideal client, you can tap into your network. So you can ask for help. That's always where I suggest starting.
Yes.
You can go, there are directories on the web that actually match podcast hosts that are looking for podcast guests. So you could sign up for one of those directories and create a profile for yourself so podcast hosts can find you. The one that I really like is called Poddit, Poddit. And what you will find is those are typically newer podcasts that are looking for guests. So it's a great place to just dip your toe in the water, start getting some practice. The reason why I wouldn't suggest that as your only strategy is because it's a lot of newer podcasts. They sometimes hit what's called pod fade. And that means that they get tired of all the work that podcast hosting actually is. And then they stop their podcast. So, but it's a great place to practice. There are Facebook groups that are dedicated to connecting podcast guests and hosts. Same deal, a lot of it are brand new podcasters, but it is a super place to get started and start making some connections. You can do research. So every single podcast platform it is like a search engine. So Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts are the two most popular. So you could type in your keywords, so what you're known for, and then a list of podcasts that will come up that have either had that topic on their show or that the show is about that topic. So then you can do some research in terms of, is the show still active? You can read the description to see if they reference having interviews or if they have guests on. You can look at the ratings and reviews. So podcast ratings will go up to 5 stars, from 0 to 5 stars. So you can identify like, okay, I only want to go on shows that have a 4.5 star rating or higher. Or maybe you only want to go on shows that have a higher number of ratings. It's hard for shows to get ratings, though. I will say that caveat, because again, people don't think to, even if they love a podcast, they don't take the time to actually go into the app and rate and review the show. So if you do see a show that has like 1,000 ratings, that's a super popular show. So those are good places to start, is the directories, the groups, your personal network, and then actually using the podcast apps as search engines. A few other ideas are, you can look at your competition to see where they're showing up on podcasts. So if you have a competitor that's also a business coach, you can type in their name into Google and then interview or podcast interview and see what shows they're on. And then if you kind of put your own spin on that particular topic, then you can go to that host with a different idea, but addressing the same topic. So that's another good way to kind of approach different shows.
Right. And we talked about earlier how, different organizations, their group has different ways that they want to get more information, right? Whether it's Facebook Live, YouTube, podcasts. So that's an important thing, I imagine, as well, to go where your people want to go.
Right, exactly.
Fun. Okay, so now we're moving on to the question of the hour, how is it possible to generate leads from a podcast appearance?
Yeah. So the number one piece is that you need to have a call to action at the end of your interview. So what I mean by that is, what do you want listeners to do? And that is going to point back to, what problem are you solving for them? So I'll just use my own business as an example because that's the easiest. So one of the things that I talk about on podcast interviews is how to get booked on podcasts when you're a busy entrepreneur. So I know that that is a topic of interest to my ideal client, because the people that end up working with me, where it's more of an agency format, where we're just handling all of the booking services for them, is they know they want to be on podcasts, and they don't have the time to spend doing it all themselves. So they have already kind of self-identified, I am a busy entrepreneur. I don't have time to get booked on podcasts. So that's the problem. I use their own words when I put that out there as an interview topic. So right there, I've got like, ooh, I've got this juicy kind of like, ooh, that's my problem. I want to learn how to do that. And so then when I go onto podcasts, I tell stories. I tell stories about my clients. I tell the story of why I started this business. I might tell some completely random story about my almost 90-year-old mom, but I tell stories because it engages people.
Yes.
I was just on a show, Nikki Rauch's The Sales Maven show. And
Nikki.
yeah, I know, she's great. She's great. So we were talking about sales successes, and I was giving examples of the tips that she's shared with me that I've implemented in my business and the results that I've had. But in talking about that, it reminded me of a family issue that we're having right now around planning my mom's 90th birthday. And how one of my family members is making it about what she wants as the family member, not about what my mom would want. And so I use that story to drive home the point, is it's not about you and how great you are and how much of an expert you are. It's about the listener. So I tell that story. So anytime like I can take something or a point that I'm trying to make and make it into a story, it really resonates with people. I got an email from somebody that heard that podcast interview that gave me tips about what she did for her mom's 90th birthday, which was great. They were great tips. But the fact that she took time out of her day to email me that is pretty amazing. So, so that is really important to be able to monetize your interviews. And then finally, you need to have a single one very clear call to action. So that could be having a discovery call with you. Maybe it's a free 15-minute call. You could have a free Facebook group that people join. Maybe they get a free ticket to your next event. Maybe there's a free download available on your website that ties back into the interview topic. So it can be anything. It should always be free. And it should be something that they're giving you their email address in exchange for the thing, whatever the thing is.
Great tips. Yeah, I'm just taking some notes here myself. Yeah, calls to action. So, in terms of having them join a Facebook group. So the end result is you're building your list, right?
Yes.
You're gathering emails, contact information, so that you can engage with these people at another level.
Exactly. So then they can sign up for your email list. You'll email them on a regular basis. They'll get to kind of know your style and your expertise and the different things you offer and the ways that you help your clients. And then when the time is right, maybe they'll hire you, or maybe they'll refer you to a friend of theirs, or another professional person in their industry. So what I do, again, I'm just going to share what I do. I have a quiz on my website that's what I share at the end of my interviews. And it's called, Could You Leverage Podcast Guesting to Grow Your Visibility? and it's less than 2 minutes. And depending on their answers, they get one of two results. Then they get an email from me saying, you know, hey, I'd love to set up a time, if they check the box saying that yes, they want the free assessment. If they check that box, then I email them, and, you know, we set up a time to have a free assessment. And then they get an email as well from me every 2 weeks with podcast guest tips, recommended shows, upcoming events, free trainings, that sort of thing. So, so yeah, it's how I build my network. It's how I let people know about my group programs when they open up. So it's a really, really amazing tool.
It is. I've been on your website and I took the free quiz, and your process is seamless. It's really beautiful the way you send the email to schedule the consultation, to offer value. And I guess that's the main thing, is you're offering value to your community right off the bat.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, right. So that's what this is all about. It's
Yeah.
really being able to be of service to our community and offer value and engage them.
Yes, yes, because there are lots of people that might take that, and I can tell by the answers that that's not a fit for them at all. And I am super clear about that when we talk, because I don't want to waste somebody's time and have them start to or invest in a program that they're still trying to figure out like who their target audience is. Because it's not going to be helpful for them. So
Right.
yeah, I'm all about like, you need to help people where they're at. And for a lot of beginning entrepreneurs, like this is not the best place for them. They're going through that journey of figuring out like, okay, what am I doing and what service am I providing? Right. So this is for people that already know who they're helping, what they're doing, and why they're doing it.
Right. But at the same time, you're identifying a service that's available to them when they're ready.
Yes, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's a continuum. So when we're talking about continuums and, you know, processes and strategies and stuff like that, it brings me to one of the networking nuggets that you shared at our online event about being a guest on podcasts is my only marketing strategy. And tell us more about that, in especially, I guess, how I'm thinking about how it relates to your track and measure, because, you know, that's a strategy that you're adopting, is and how it affects your, you know, your new business venture.
Yes, yes. So yeah, my background again is in sales management. And so I was judged on my success by my results. So I am very results driven, both for myself and for my clients. And the way I do that is I have a spreadsheet that I made. So when I go on a podcast, I list the podcast, the date, the topic of discussion, and then 30 days from when it aired, I note how many leads I got from the podcast and how many sales, or like the revenue from that podcast interview. So that's fun for me. I know it's not fun for everybody, but it is something that I teach in my Perfect Podcast Guest program. So I I just basically share my spreadsheet. I show everybody what I do. I strongly encourage you to do it. And I hope that you do it. But so that shows me over time that I can see what categories of shows are moving the needle for my business. And so for me, I can see that going on shows where the topic is around sales, and the people that listen to those shows have either invested in working with a sales coach, or they're interested in sales and becoming better salespeople. Those shows are very good for me in terms of podcast guesting. And then shows about marketing strategy are really good for me. So that's the cool thing about the spreadsheet, is data doesn't lie. So you can see if you're going on a certain type of show and you're not seeing any results, like stop doing that. Do the shows that are giving you the results.
I love that. Data doesn't lie. That's beautiful. So taking the time to pause and reflect is really important in our business, and to be able to not just keep moving on and booking the next, you know, the next podcast opportunity, but to really reflect on what's working, what's not working, and adjust. That's really, it's basic, but it's so important for all of us to remember.
Well, we forget it, right? You know, we all get caught up, I think. In fact, have a biz bestie, and we were talking about business, and I just read this book called Big Enough, and it's about designing a business that fits your life. And it was written by a guy named Lee Lefevre, and he has another company called Common Craft, which it was the first company to start doing explainer videos on YouTube. So they would get hired by large companies to explain a concept. They'd create these explainer videos on YouTube, and it went very viral. And so it's a large company, but it's run by the two of them, he and his wife. So they've been able to design this business that works for their lifestyle, which is not having employees, keeping it small, but he just kind of tells the story of what they've done and why they did it. And the point that I'm making with this is, I had a direction I was going with that. Anyway, it's a great book, and I would strongly suggest
I
it.
love the idea of explainer videos. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, go to commoncraft.com or check out their YouTube channel at Common Craft. And I think the first one he did was called like RSS Explained in simple terms, and explains what an RSS feed. And I think he did one about WordPress. So a lot of them were tech, like in the more early days of tech, but now there are explainer videos for almost everything.
Wow.
He actually did one because he just released this book about how to help an author. So I posted that on LinkedIn because I know so many new authors, aspiring authors, and it gives like simple instructions on what to do to help an author when their book releases. So it's really, really cool.
I hate to say it this way, but you know the book that was so popular that, you know, whatever for dummies?
Oh yeah, it's kind of like that.
It
Yeah.
reminded me of the same thing. So
Yeah,
I
except it's a video and it's short.
Yeah, it's not about dummies, but it's
Yeah.
just that caught on because
Yep.
people want like, just give me the bare bones, foundational, help me get going here.
Yep.
Speak clearly. Don't impress me with highfalutin vocabulary and concepts. I just want to jump on board. So I
Yep.
love that. So, so Julie, as we kind of wind up this conversation, is there anything in regards to, increasing your visibility with podcast guesting that you want to share before we wind this up and before we give you an opportunity to share how our listeners can engage and work with you?
Yeah, I would just encourage anybody who's watching that is an expert to explore this because it is, number one, it's fun. Number two, it's pretty low stakes because even if the interview goes terribly wrong, or you have a coughing attack, or your dog barges in and starts barking, like all of those things have happened to me, and it gets edited out. I remember one interview I had was at 7:30 on a Saturday morning, which I don't typically book interviews for that early because I get congested in the morning and I don't sound great. So there was a lot of throat clearing that I had to do, but it got edited all out. So it's pretty low stakes. And then the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And it really can be a great way to share your business and kind of get the word out about what you're doing. So I encourage people to just do it.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being a spotlight speaker for our Exceptional Connections community for September, joining us today for our conversation to connect. And so, Julie, I just adore you, and I think you're just brilliant, and I'm excited about this next journey that you're on right now and what you're learning and the contribution you can be to our community at large as well. So share with our listeners ways that they can engage or work with you,
Okay.
different opportunities that you're looking for.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. So, as I mentioned, I work with clients that are too busy to handle their own podcast bookings. So, we have a done for you service offering that's we identify the strategy, which includes coming up with your interview topics to get you in front of the right audience and the right shows, and then do the outreach. So that's a retainer program where we work with clients. And then I work with clients one-on-one to uncover what their interview topics could be. We come up with the content for a podcast guest one sheet, which is like a speaker sheet that's used in media outreach. So I work with clients in a couple of ways with that, in strategy sessions to accomplish those goals. And then I have a group program that the next one starts in the first week of October, where we kind of walk through deeper in what we talked about today. So we actually do the work together on the call with 10 other like-minded entrepreneurs, where I do a bit of teaching on the call, then we take time to actually do the work through implementation. There's time for masterminding with the other attendees, and then there's goal setting and accountability. So that happens over the course of 6 sessions. And that I do have a special for people that are watching this. I'm not sure do you want me to like put the link in a chat, or what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, go ahead and talk about it, and then
Okay.
just mention that they can contact me, Cyndi
Okay.
at exceptionalconnections.com, or
Okay.
yourself, Julie at yourexpertguest.com,
Yeah.
if they're interested in a seat. But before you do that, I just want to mention 2 things. Number 1, Julie practices what she preaches. So in preparation for this call today, she sent me one of her branded one sheet, with the content, how to introduce her, the questions that she's, likes to be asked. So I think it's wonderful to be able to, be a product of the product, right? Do what you say you're teaching others to do. So I wanted to acknowledge you for that. And also the perfect podcast guest program that Julie started to talk about, she offered to our Exceptional Connections community. And I believe there's still some seats available.
Yes. So I have 2 different days and time slots. So one class starts on October 6th. So that's from 1 to 2:30 p.m. So those are Tuesdays. And then the other one is October 7th is the first meeting, and that's from 9:30 to 11. And they are every other week. So because we do cover a lot, and sometimes there is a bit of homework or steps that people want to take after the call, we wanted to give time to actually work through the content. So yes, that is $597 for the program. And I do have a special offer for anybody listening here that would save $100. So it would be $497.
Okay. And so if you're interested in taking a deeper dive and joining us, a number of the members of our Exceptional Connections community are participating and doing the perfect podcast guest program. Actually, a number of us are doing it on Wednesday, the 7th, but I think there's some people that are taking advantage of your Tuesday date as well.
Yes. So yeah,
again,
I do have a few spots in both classes still available.
Okay, to get that special price point, they'll need to contact you directly, right?
Yeah, or you, whichever is easier.
Either way. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be great. Or you can go to Julie's website, yourexpertguest.com, and take advantage of her free quiz to determine if podcast guesting can help you with your business.
Grow your visibility. Yep.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah. So I'm happy to answer questions or hear takeaways, whatever you'd like to do next.
Let's go ahead and unmute, and anybody who has any questions, ahas, this is a great opportunity while we got Julie on the line to be able to answer your questions or share your thoughts. So I'll have you unmute yourselves because I'm not able to do that here. Anybody have any questions or thoughts in regards to the fun information that Julie shared with us?
I just wanted to thank Julie for doing this. And I really believe in podcasting because I drive a lot and I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I've driven all the way to BC, Vancouver, and I download those like every day. It's like my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I have participated in a few podcasts that no longer exist, but it has been a beautiful platform because I really love some of my old ones. I have uploaded into my website because when people get to know me and I repurpose them, I put them in the newsletter once every quarter, because I have a newsletter that goes out. So it's a great way to, if you just met me, here's a little bit about me.
Yeah.
So, that, podcaster, gets in a moment where somebody might go back and, and listen to that story and comment. And it's just so filling, that joy. We're creating that joy for the other person, that even though they did it 6 years ago, that content is still there. And I also have used podcasts to repurpose in a blog, like I'll rewrite, because some people receive message information differently. I am a listener, I'm an auditor, definitely, but some people like to read that. Yep. And it's like, that podcast has been there for 6 years, and even though I blogged it and somebody will comment on that blog, I'm like, oh, interesting, because I've used the same podcast over and over.
Yep.
So I really believe that it's definitely where you can, if we learn how to utilize it, we can help so many people, storytelling and healing in the process. So thank you so much for saying this is definitely a confirmation of what I am doing. Is what I did, it was really good, and continue.
It matters. Yep. Yeah. It matters, and it helps people. That's great. Yeah. Thanks, Rakshana. And I want to compliment Cyndi. You're great at interviewing and this particular style. So this was a fun experience, and keep doing it.
Thank you. Yes, it's definitely a muscle that we flex when we do something new. And the more we do it, the easier it gets. So thank you for being our guest. I was a little intimidated. I was thinking, gosh, I should really be interviewing her after I take her 6-week session. But you've been so gracious, and I really appreciate her.
You did great. And I can't wait to have you in the group. It's going to be really fun.
It will be fun. So anybody else, any ahas, epiphanies, whether from her talk today or our conversation today, or even from the Spotlight Speaker talk?
Well, I have a question.
Well,
Go ahead, Gail.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that I find your talk very inspiring. I think it's a great platform. I took your quiz, and I still have a lot of work to do before I get to that point. But I wrote a lot of notes, and so I've got something to study and research and get better at it. So thank you so much for
Thanks, Gail.
for teaching.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So a question for you, Julie. So one of the things I've appeared on podcasts. I haven't been on one in probably 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
But before, how does somebody, when you're going to be a guest, how do you keep from getting what I would call, because you show up in the studio, and I've been in some studios that were radio studios, and they had 4 or 5 things going on at one time.
Okay.
So how does you as a guest, when you show up and you say, oh my God, I mean, you go in this semi-chaotic environment and keep your focus or develop your focus so when it starts, you don't blank out?
Well, that's a good question. And I would say that nowadays it is very rare to go into a studio when you're doing a podcast interview. Most of them are done over Zoom or over Skype. So occasionally, I know, especially locally here, like there's a show that's a podcast, but it's also a radio show. So they do record that in the studio. You will find if it's a radio show and a podcast that they will have you come into the studio, but that again is not the norm. So, and I would say most podcast studios, like that's what they do now. It's not going to be the same chaotic environment. I have a guest who's going on to the Seattle Kitchen show on Friday, and that's all they do in their studio is there's not other things that could be potential distractors. So hopefully that will be what you find as well, that it's changed quite a lot. The podcast industry has eclipsed, like there's over 1.2 million shows now. I don't know what the number of them, 5 or 6 years ago, but my guess is it was probably like 1/5 of that number.
Yeah.
Well, kind of as an add-on to Chuck's question, it occurred to me that what you've done with your one sheets and what you teach your clients to do as well is to create, whether it's 5 or 10, whatever suggested questions, and flesh out each of those questions so that you're prepared.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes, and you send those to the host beforehand
send those to
so
the
that
host,
you're
and then,
making it easy for them.
right. And if, so if they ask you a question, you're not caught off guard.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
that's not fun to not, not either be clear what the question is or how to answer it. So being prepared is important. Kind of like being a
Yes.
Girl Scout, right?
It's kind of like being a Girl Scout. Yep, you got to be prepared. But also, part of the beauty is sometimes like you could go in thinking that it's going to go one way and it goes a completely different way, and that's okay. But to have that general framework that you show up with and that the host has also been given, at least you guys are coming to it with the same information.
Right. Well, and it's a learning experience each time,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So any other questions or thoughts before we close up here? So Julie, thank you so much. We've appreciated your time and sharing your expertise and wisdom with us, with your expert guest. And thank you for all the ways that you're making your services available to our community, whether it's the Done For You DIY service or one-on-one strategy session to take advantage of the podcast. So for those of you who are listening, this will be posted on YouTube. Please do get in touch with myself, Cyndi at exceptionalconnections.com or Julie at yourexpertguest.com if you want to reserve a seat in her upcoming October 6th or 7th programs and take advantage of the special price that Julie's offering. So any closing remarks, parting remarks you want to leave our listeners with, Julie, before we close?
I'll just say there might be thousands of people that do what you do, but there's only one of you with your story. So go out there and share it on podcasts.
So true, so true. Beautiful. So if you found value from our conversation today, please take a minute to subscribe to our Exceptional Connections YouTube channel. Watch the replay and fill in your notes. Give us a thumbs up. And be sure to ring the bell so that you're notified when the next conversation to connect lands on our ECN channel. To learn more about Exceptional Connections, go to exceptionalconnections.com. Our new website is going to be launched in the next couple of weeks. You can also go to Exceptional-Connections page and private group on Facebook. Until then, remember to make every connection an exceptional connection. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.